What's up, guys? Faruqi Bros here, back with another film review. And today, for you guys, we're going to be talking about the latest Bong Joon-ho film, Mickey 17. So, I can start us off and get right into it. So, it's interesting coming into this year. Mickey 17 was on a lot of our lists from one of the most anticipated movies. It might have been number one, but it was in our list because, coming off of Parasite, we're thinking that Bong Joon-ho's filmography, everything he's going for, that this might be his magnum opus coming off of an Oscar. Now that he has unlimited budget to work with, we're going to get something that's truly like cutting edge from the director. And I'm part of that boat. I'm coming to this movie thinking that we're going to get some, potentially a 5-star movie in contention for best movie of the year. Interestingly enough, when you go into the movie and coming out of it, ultimately, I did not come out of it thinking I got a masterpiece. Ultimately, I got an understanding that this director almost fell back to his tendencies. And when I say tendencies, this movie kind of feels like kind of strands of what Okja was trying to do, mixed with that sci-fi element, and then ultimately really just carried by Robert Pattinson. And I'm going to kind of get into Robert Pattinson next. I feel like this is an interesting role for him because obviously he's playing lots of characters, primarily two different ones. And the way that he gets to kind of experiment with it, it's almost like it's very like a unique way to go about it. I don't want to, for somebody that the name Johnny Depp comes to mind, like in terms of like being kind of experimental and kind of the mannerisms that he was going for. But ultimately, the film, in a way, like, and this is not to be like the political times we're living in. We have a specific, Trump administration, and I know this film was written and shot and everything before the current administration got in. But part of the themes and the way that it's being dealt is done with very little subtlety. And as you know from last year, a lot of reviews I do that I personally like more subtlety in my writing. When it's like ham-fisted into your face like the substance was, I end up not liking it as much. But this film, while it's not as extreme as that, I feel like a lot of the themes that it was trying to manage, like you can just say capitalism is bad and be like, well, that's the theme, but how many times it's being put through. And you can make another thing that, well, the clones are kind of an allegory for how we deal with meat in general, how we deal with livestock. And again, that's why the Okja kind of themes come through. And then just kind of weak kind of elements of, what is it like to be human? What does death feel like? Are we all the same? Or are we the same religion? Like these kind of concepts between the clones. I feel like Severance does the same thing, but better and done with more subtlety. So it's like when you look at these kind of concepts, ultimately I come out just a tad bit disappointed. Maybe I had my expectations too high, and ultimately I still give it 4 stars. But I feel like the execution is really strong. I think the cinematography is really strong. I think overall the acting across the board was great. We can kind of get into our best and worst actors if we want to, but ultimately I think that it was serviceable in all those areas. It's just I feel like for what we expected for a Bong Joon-ho movie, I wanted to go the extra level from a thematic point of view, and ultimately did not hit that extra level. But overall, I think if you're interested in just seeing Robert Pattinson have a lot of fun on screen and kind of experiment and be a little different and kind of push the boundaries of his acting chops, then I think you're going to really like what this movie brings to the table. And ultimately, that's kind of my basic thoughts on it. I'm kind of sitting on 4 stars. Zayyan, I'm going to pass the baton to you. What did you think about it?
I think it was kind of carried by Robert Pattinson's performance, and if that element wasn't there, I'd kind of be much harder in the film. I knew from the trailers, from the first trailer and all the other ones, that okay, this is clearly gearing more towards a comedic sense. And when you saw the movie, it really was just full-fledged comedy. I don't think it was anything serious. They tried to touch on, like you said, some of the more dramatic themes that of like colonialism, capitalism, and those other things, and what it means to die, what it means to be a person or a soul, have a soul or whatnot. But it was so just surface level stuff, which is unfortunate because you look at his past work, Parasite, Memories of Murder, even Snowpiercer, there was a level of seriousness and like gravitas to the movies. And I guess Snowpiercer is a closer example because it kind of deals with the same thing of, humanity and kind of moving forward and survival and that whole thing. And I felt like not enough of what he did there was taken here. This was way more of a comedic movie in every sense. Even that whole point of, what does it feel like to die? Every time he's asked that question, he's asked with a comedic connotation or undertone. So it's never really taken seriously until he himself mentions it in that scene where they're kind of struggling in that fire pit. And he's like, now that you've been cloned, if I die, that's it for me. And now he kind of feels what that's like. That was like the only time they actually touched upon it in like sincerity almost. The rest was just very surface level or used for comedy effect, which I found unfortunate because we know how well he does as a director when it's taken seriously. So I get that he's kind of broadening his horizons. Like you said, that after Parasite, you get the Oscar win, you're kind of given a blank check to kind of just do what you want and make the project that you want. And this is what he chose to do, but I feel like it kind of showed that is not really his forte. At least that's how I felt watching the film. Because from his dramatic films, it's obviously 5 out of 5 films, but here it's kind of just because of the comedy, it hindered kind of a lot of the deeper themes that they could have really pushed forward with. So that was just unfortunate. And as far as the score goes, I'm more closer to the 3.5, honestly. But because of Robert Pattinson's performance, I think he gave a good kind of duality performance between the two versions. And he added like a good level of just fun to the movie without like taking away from the story or the themes. And I think that he did a good job playing the two characters. So that kind of alone brought it up to 4 stars. But the rest of the movie, there were just too many moving pieces, and not one thing was taken any too serious. So it just kind of fell for me there.
Yeah, I feel like the pressure for this movie is like no other film because it's because of the generational performance that Parasite had, which is like one of the best movies of the last decade. That not only performed well at the awards, but it was an incredibly well written film. Um, I think this film, if you're someone that's only familiar with Parasite or more of his Korean work, then this would be like something uh, completely unexpected. But I think when you look at his English language work, like you said, Snowpiercer and Okja, this tone and kind of lack of subtlety is not it's not new for him. I think a lot of his English work is just a lot of comedic and absurdity, and I'm fine with that. I think it works well. I think it's pretty fun, and um I mean it deals with themes that he 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 uh he engages with in almost all his films, like the political satire aspect of it and the environmentalism aspect of it. And I know he didn't really he says he didn't really base Mark Ruffalo's character off anyone specific, but I mean there are red hats in that specific mannerism, and I enjoyed that. Overall, I think it's pretty good. I think you just need to go into it with less expectations for it to be like another Parasite. Like I don't think you can expect that level of work again, just because the bar is just way too high. And I think going into it more open minded, I had a good time with it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, just building off what your point is, and kind of thinking of like what's a good comparison, and the one I thought about in my head sounds so weird. I can't even say it on the camera. Maybe I'll build up to it, but ultimately, I feel like that ham-fisted approach can work, and there's places where it does work. And I was reading a contemporary review on the film, so I don't want to take credit for this thought, where it was saying that, well, in terms of the subtletyness or the lack of subtlety, it was being handled, especially on the villain side, with almost like a Miyazaki approach. I thought that was a weird comparison. Like, why would you bring a Miyazaki as specifically to Mark Ruffalo's character and saying that, well, he is supposed to be like a walking, just a villain to be a villain's sake, as villain as it gets. And even the person who played, was it his wife, like the person from Knives Out, right?
Tony Collette. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think they're both very ham-fisted as characters. So for me, I get it because it just has this kind of surrealist kind of approach to it that it does work in its own vacuum. But I just felt like the ideas here were so good that they could have been explored at a much deeper level, and the fact that it wasn't almost wastes those ideas. And part of it is that you don't want any director drinking their own Kool-Aid too much, especially coming off a big win. And I feel like when there's times where directors do drink their own Kool-Aid, and I'll even put a friend of the show on, like, as an example, like even with Zack Snyder, I love his superhero work, but when he came to Rebel Moon, it's almost like you got drunk on your own ideas, and ultimately very few of them kind of translated through even on the director's cut. So and for Mickey 17, this is on a different scale, but it's like a lot of the ideas that I want him to explore, especially the ones about like what does it mean to die, as I was talking about, like those are really good ideas. And what does it look like? I know the fact that he keeps resurrecting and getting his memories is like almost like counterbalancing it. But there is an interesting debate here, and the same thing with the whole idea of cloning. And I get like what are the allegories to that. I just feel like it was done with like a baseball bat being swung to your face rather than like, here's certain ideas, think about it, and maybe we'll get to the answer as the movie goes on. Rather, it's like, you know what this movie is already from the first 10 minutes, and it doesn't not be that at the end. So that's kind of my main thing. I know maybe we're criticizing more than we should, but ultimately we're all giving it positive scores. I mean, I gave it 4. Zion's thinking 4, 3.5. I forgot what he finalized on. And Samir, I don't think you even gave a score yet, but you can give it in a second. So we all think it's a good movie, but I think none of us feel like it's going to end up being the best movie of 25 when it's all said and done. I think that's why I'm feeling disappointed. It's still a good movie, and I think I encourage the audience to see it, but I just doesn't hit that high that I wanted. Like, I'm not expecting Dune 2, but I'm expecting just like, I'm not expecting Christopher Nolan, but I'm expecting like something that can like push the conversation forward. And Samir, what was your score anyways?
I mean, first off, I completely agree with that. I feel like there's definitely some part of this film that feels like it's missing around the third act. Or there's even one character, the girl's character, I forget her name, that is completely missing in like the second half of the film. I feel like there's like a chunk of it that should have been there, that isn't. And I know Bong Joon-ho handles the endings of his films really well, but for this one, I wasn't so sure about the ending. I feel like there could have been more places to go with it. I did end up giving it a 4, though. I did enjoy what he did give, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I was thinking that after the movie ended, that one girl who was at the dinner who liked Mickey 17, she's like, she completely disappeared from the third act of the movie. And it's like, why did you even waste so much time on her in the beginning for no reason? And there's so many other elements too, like the whole thing about the drug thing and him escaping. I get that it makes sense for that first part to like push the plot forward of why he wants to leave Earth. But then the other guy, his friend becoming the drug dealer, and the guy being on the ship and stuff like that, it felt like it was just nothing. They were just padding stuff in there that was really just inconsequential. And there was a lot of that in the film, and the whole thing with the girl suddenly disappearing in the third act, that's also part of it. It's like there are a lot of pieces there that I was just introduced for no reason or just left out for no reason, and just it wasn't cohesive. And Strauss made a good point that the reason like we're being hard on it, but we were going into this year thinking that, oh, this is gonna be like might be the lock for the best movie of the year. And now I'm thinking ahead of what's coming out. It's like it's gonna be such a bad year of movies. This was supposed to be the movie to like save the year, but now I don't know what's even coming out. So it's unfortunate because this could have been like his Interstellar, even who knows, like his really sci-fi magnum opus where he kind of went there because those same themes are there of humanity trying to survive and whatnot. And like you said, the whole thing of dying and what it means to be a person, what it means to just be alive and whatnot. Those were just all surface level. But as far as the performances, I thought Mark Ruffalo's performance, though he was a very surface level character, he was honestly the funniest character in the film. Like he was the only character where I thought, okay, his comedy was actually good. Everything else was just like, oh, like, can you just take it serious for 1 second, But he, as the one comedic linchpin, he was all right.
I know it's it's a different role, but that over the topness, I feel like, again, it's very different the way he executed it, but it kind of happened in Poor Things, but it's like, like that over the top character.
It's very similar to Poor His.
Yeah, so I was like, not that he's doing the same thing. There are differences, but it was kind of like we're almost playing on a caricature level now. Like he's just playing a caricature of something. But he did good. But it's just an interesting thought. But yeah, I think that's mostly our thoughts on Mickey 17. We'll probably get to it as we get closer to the year. Maybe who knows, the year's films aren't good enough, and we're gonna end up putting Mickey 17 in our top 10s. But let's see how that goes. It's been a slow start for movies, and I admittedly, as you can see, the podcast has been on a couple of breaks. We haven't had a chance to catch up ourselves, but I think over the course of the year, we're going to be catching up much more and getting a sense of what's coming out. So let's quickly shift from Mickey 17 because I wanted to talk about a new show that's hitting Disney Plus, and that's Daredevil. Born Again. Is it called Born Again? I mean, I missed. Born Again. Pseudo Daredevil season 4, and I want to get a quick review on it. I mean, it's not going to be. I know it's a TV show, so we don't cover it too much on the cinema debate side. But I did want to talk about it because it is a continuation of a show that all of us, very much loved. So I want to kind of get right into it. Zayyan, do you want to kick us off on that topic?
Yeah. So obviously, coming off of the Netflix series, it's like the only place to go is down, unfortunately, because you left on such a high with season 3. It was just absolute 5 out of 5 season, and it's my favorite superhero TV show of all time. So I'm like coming to this knowing that okay, there is no way it's gonna reach that level, and unfortunately, it did not. Even from the minute one, you can tell the lighting is so poor. It's so dark when he's running around the rooftops, and he looks kind of rubbery too. And there's so much fog. It's like they're falling back into the worst type of MCU lighting, and it happened again here, unfortunately. But I think once you move past that stuff, the rubbery CGI jumping around Daredevil, like it's like you can't even hire the stunt double. Like in the original Netflix series, they're great stunt work where they actually have the guy running around. Here, just like you knew he wasn't even there. The whole thing was sweet CGI. So that's obviously one big knock on it. But the performances itself, I think Charlie Cox, Matt Murdock, and Vincent D'Onofrio, they're all those really the two main characters of the first 2 episodes that have come out so far. And I think they did a good job. I think any scene they had together or that was about them and kind of what they're doing and where they're going, especially Matt Murdock, I think those scenes were really good. Kingpin, he's an okay character so far, but that one scene of them in like the diner or whatever, I think that was just probably the best scene in the first 2 episodes so far. And I think as long as they focus more on that aspect, that okay, they both know what each other's about now. How will Daredevil respond? How will Wilson Fisk respond to Daredevil, and kind of back and forth on that? That's really what's going to carry the show. I think too much deviation from that, and it's going to be a little bit on rocky road.
Yeah, I'm gonna take this time to actually educate some of the viewers who might not know like what this show's backstory is, because coming into the MCU, the call that Kevin Feige made was that he wanted just Kingpin and Daredevil, I mean the respective actors, to come into the MCU, but it was very much going to be its own universe, and so it's going to be part of the MCU, very loosely connected to the original show, but very much also its own thing. And you could see if you watched even the clips of She-Hulk when Daredevil appeared in that show, that it almost felt like, yeah, this is not really him. It's the same actor, but it's almost like a different universe. And then when he appeared in Spider-Man No Way Home for a second, yeah, that kind of felt like himself from the show, but it's only like one scene, so you can't really judge most of it. So they shot an entire season with the concept that this is just its own thing, and there's no Foggy and there's no Karen, and it's a different show. And then they retroactively went back and added these characters and added the old characters and added Punisher and made a whole thing of it, where now it is very firmly set in the world. They even had a different actors playing Vanessa, shot the entire series with the different Vanessa, went back to bring the old Vanessa and shot it again. So like you can see how much it's changed last second to make that work. And ultimately, I think it is the right move, because the original Daredevil series is a masterpiece, and it's one of the best, again, superhero shows of all time, as Zayyan already pointed that out. So for me, coming into the show, again, mixed bag. There are scenes where it's good. There's scenes where it becomes almost CW. I gotta be honest. Like this new, like, the new law office they're working in, they all have like their sidekicks now, and they're all like there. And I'm like, what is this? Like, it doesn't have that gravitas anymore. And even Charlie Cox was doing a great performance. Daredevil himself is a little more different. You could see, because it changes from scene to scene. There's scenes where you could tell like there's some kind of pain he's dealing with. Like the scene where he had set up on the date in the first episode with that girl, and it's kind of like, well, I hired a therapist and this and that, and it was almost like very tongue-in-cheek, because they just shot the scene where he died. They crammed in like 50 episodes into one, okay? And now they're like, and it suddenly becomes tongue-in-cheek again, because it wasn't like that originally. It was just like something is bothering him, who knows what. And now it's a huge thing's bothering him, and it feels weird. So, and I also don't really like Vanessa's characterizations in this version of the show. This is me personally. Feels a little off, but that's just me. And Kingpin also, again, he was in Hawkeye, he was in other shows, he was in the Echo show that I think nobody watched, and then so he has a little arc that's been built out that he's walking into, and it's like, okay, this is something now. But I don't know, man. It's just, I hope the season ends up being good. Actually, because they shot back to have a second season already in the works, I feel like season 2 is where it's going to be really good. I also don't think Foggy actually died. That's just me personally, but I feel like he's coming back. I don't know. I'm saying,
how does that make any sense?
Oh,
then not only did he die, they also did a time jump in the show itself.
Listen, there's
like 1 year later, you know.
There's a famous comic book called like The Day Foggy Died or something like that, and that comic run was in the window, and in that show, he secretly went away and went to witness protection, and he did all these different things, and he showed up as a hero in the end. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Are they pulling that?
If that happens, that's gonna be the worst thing ever.
Well, they maybe brought him for season 2. They're like, come on, pull up, So I don't know, but that's just my theory. I have no journalistic proof of that at all. I'm just thinking on the top of my head. But I don't know. So I think the show's okay. It's watchable, but and that's more than you can say for most Marvel Disney Plus things. So I can get there. You go. It's watchable. That's the grade I give it. And for Samir, it might not even be watchable because I don't think he's seen it. So there you go.
To be fair, I didn't see the original, so.
Oh, okay, so you're behind. Well, that's Daredevil, man. We'll see. We'll cover it. I don't even want to cover it on a week-to-week basis, but if something big happens, we'll jump in. I'm interested in how Punisher is going to be personally portrayed. Hopefully, they don't play it on kid gloves. It's interesting character you can play with. But let's see. Either way, what do you guys think about Mickey 17? Let us know in the comments what your thoughts on the movie is. And of course, if you've seen Daredevil Born Again, how do you like the new episodes? Do you like it better or worse than the original show? Have you not seen the original show and you're jumping into the Disney Plus show fresh? We want to hear your thoughts and join the debate with us. From myself, from Zayyan, and from Samir, we'll see you next time on the next podcast. Peace out.